Hello my 5 beautiful subscribers. Today we're going to learn 2 huge mistakes I made when I first started with my apple trees. Mistake number 1 is don't buy a full-size apple tree. They come usually in 3 different sizes from the nursery: dwarf, semi-dwarf, and full. And the problem is, if you get a full, it's usually not grafted, and it can take many years before it produces fruit buds. So that was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was I cut the center leader out of my apple trees, which again caused it even longer to produce flowers. The only pros to getting a full-size tree, and when I say full-size, I mean not the tree itself is full-size, it means the tree will grow to a full size when it's completely mature. The only advantage is it does live longer, but most people want fruit now, as soon as possible, and they don't care if the tree is going to live 20 years or 40 years. Apparently, semi-dwarf and dwarf trees don't live nearly as long as a full-size tree that was never grafted. So if you look down here at this Gala apple tree, you will see that it was never grafted. It either came from a clone or a seed, and it means it's going to live a lot longer, but took an extra 5 years before it started to flower. So if you look here at this Crimson Crisp apple tree that we planted last year, it is a semi-dwarf tree, which means it is grafted onto rootstock that keeps it small and keeps the growth rate lower, but it also means the tree will mature faster and create fruit buds sooner. So for most backyard orchards, home orchards, you definitely want to go semi-dwarf or even a dwarf fruit tree, which I will show you next. Okay, so I have 12 apple trees here on the farm, and I only have one that is a full dwarf apple tree, or so they said when I got it from the nursery. This is a Pink Lady, and it flowered faster than any other apple tree that I ever had. So I think it was the 2nd year in the ground. It produced flowers and actually fruited on the 2nd year in the ground, which is extremely rare for an apple tree. So now that we've been over mistake number 1, which is don't buy full-size fruit trees of any kind, this is a full-size Gala, definitely buy a semi-dwarf tree so we can get fruit much quicker. So now that we've gone over mistake number 1, we're going to talk about mistake number 2. And mistake number 2 also has to do with not getting flower buds as soon as we can. And the reason I made this mistake is because I started with peach trees, and peach trees is a stone fruit, and you want to prune stone fruits in a vase with an open center. And I thought that I should prune my apples the same way. So if you look here at this Gala, you can see that I cut the main leader out of this tree when it was young. And I believe that it changed the hormones in the tree and caused it not to produce flower buds for a much longer time. So over the past 15 years, I have slowly been changing the way I prune my apple trees to a center leader. I've only learned this through trial and error over many years, and going around and looking at other apple trees. My father has an apple tree, a Gala, planted at the exact same time, and he never pruned it once. And it has a center leader, it's totally messy, and it's loaded with more flower buds than you've ever seen in your life. Yet, my trees, pruned in a vase, wouldn't produce flowers for 12 years. So here is an example. This is the Crimson Crisp of a center leader pruning, where we pull the branches down laterally, leaving the main center leader. This tree produced flowers 10 years sooner than the Gala tree for those two reasons: semi-dwarf and central leader. You can see here that I've used these training tools to pull the branches down horizontally. It's very simple. And we can train the tree in a nice, beautiful shape and still get the same results we want without going in there and making a very big, aggressive cut. So if we go back to my old Gala tree, we can see that I left it go for probably 3 years. Didn't prune it because I was so frustrated, wasn't getting any flowers, didn't know what to do, and it put up a bunch of main leaders, as you can see. I went and left these main leaders go, and sure enough, 2 years after I let these main leaders go, you can see lots of spurs coming off the ends. The tree has now corrected itself from my mistake after years and years and years. But hopefully you guys can learn from this and avoid this whole fiasco to begin with.